48 hours we'll have them aloft. Then whoosh, up, over, and whammo. There goes the enemy.
You're traveling to another dimension. Your next stop, the Twilight Zone.
Today's stop on the Twilight Zone Review Marathon brings us to the highly regarded episode, Third from the Sun. This is familiar Twilight Zone territory, a world in the grip of a Cold War.
Now tell me right out loud, what are you supposed to do when you see the Flash?
This episode reflects an ongoing volatile period in American history. By the time Third from the Sun aired in January of 1960, the arms race was escalating, fallout shelters and air raid drills were already a way of life, and threat of a nuclear attack became a terrifying reality. Much of that fear and anxiety is woven into this narrative, but reshaped with a traditional Twilight Zone spin.
You ever think, Sturka, that there may be people on those stars, too?
Third from the Sun is episode 14 of season 1, and it was directed by Richard L. Baer. The teleplay comes from Rod Serling, but it was based on a short story by Richard Matheson, originally published in the October 1950 edition of Galaxy Science Fiction.
Quitting time at the plant. Time for supper now. Time for families. Time for a cool drink on a porch. Time for the quiet rustle of leaf-laden trees that screen out the moon. And underneath it all, behind the eyes of the men, hanging invisible over the summer night, is a horror without words. For this is the stillness before storm. This is the eve of the end.
Third from the Sun stars the renowned Fritz Weaver, so off the bat, you know we're in for something good.
3, 2, 1, mark!
I alert air sea rescue, sir.
During Weaver's nearly 60-year-long career, the Tony Award-winning and Emmy-nominated actor featured in many memorable films and TV shows. But here on the channel, I typically cover anthologies and horror, so I'm more familiar with him as the ruthless chancellor in The Obsolete Man, or the shady landlord who rents a room that already seems to be occupied in Tales from the Dark Side. And I think it's basically mandatory that I mention the time he had an awesome sword duel with Wonder Woman. Or did he?
It's a robot!
In any case, since I mainly know of Weaver for his darker roles, it's refreshing to see him here in Third from the Sun as our protagonist, Will Sturka. This time, Weaver is someone we're actually meant to root for, though given the morally complex nature of the Twilight Zone, even that might not be as simple as it seems. But we'll come back to that.
Sturka, hydrogen armament. You boys are pretty busy up there, aren't you?
Will is one of many scientists employed by the military. In this case, his base manufactures devastating weapons in preparation for an imminent nuclear war. A war that we learn will be kicked into high gear in a mere 48 hours.
It's coming, boy. It's really coming, and a big one, too.
Interestingly, most of the setup we need is delivered at the top of the episode in a tense conversation between Will and his co-worker Carling, as played by Edward Andrews. Carling is an absolute highlight in Third from the Sun, and he works perfectly here as our sleazy warhawk.
While we're talking here, I bet the military's getting all set.
Carling stands in stark contrast to Will, who openly voices his disgust at the oncoming Holocaust and the inevitable retaliation to follow.
You a defeatist, Sturka? That's dangerous thinking.
Right from the start, this one pulled me in. The subject matter fits with Rod Serling's anti-war stance, and by firmly establishing Sturka as our world-weary voice of reason, and Carling as our cold-hearted warmonger, the lines are clearly drawn and the narrative is pushed forward.
Hello, Dad.
With the clock ticking, Will returns home, and it's here that the sense of urgency sets in. On this point, I have to credit director Richard L. Baer. He sustains an uneasy tension throughout, layering nearly every scene with the sense of impending doom.
I have so much fear inside me, I can't give it words.
Initially, the question is, how much do Will's loved ones actually know about what's to come?
Something's going to happen. And everybody's afraid.
With time being short, and Will's family already suspecting something's wrong, he reveals his escape plan to his wife, Eve, as played by Laurie March.
You and Jody and I and Jerry and Ann, we're leaving tonight.
Leaving? Leaving for where?
We soon learn that Will has devised a risky plan to flee the planet with his loved ones in an experimental ship. A desperate gamble, to say the least, but it's their only chance for survival.
Now, let's see what we can do.
Bill, we've got to change our plan.
Not yet.
Joining Will on his journey is his trusted friend Jerry Ryden, who luckily happens to be a pilot. Jerry is played by Joe Moross. Fans will recognize him from the Season 3 episode, The Little People. And rounding out our cast, we have Jerry's wife Ann, as played by Jean Evans.
We have to leave before 11.
It'll be a lot tougher. There are more men on the field then. More searchlights.
It doesn't make any difference. We're only your relatives with permission to look at the new ship.
In one of the more tense moments, Will and Jerry iron out the details of their escape plan. I really like this scene because it nails that eerie Big Brother is watching vibe. And, as it turns out, Will is justified in his suspicions that he's being spied on, because Carling is lurking right outside his window, like a certified creeper.
You better mind what you say.
Later in the episode, we get what may be one of the most suspenseful scenes in the series, the card game. Here we pick up key details. We learn the planet they're headed to is 11 million miles away, and it even has people with a language similar to their own. But what really makes this scene unforgettable is Carling's sudden appearance.
Well, Sturka, little cards tonight, eh?
Little cards, Carling.
The suspense that follows is something Hitchcock himself would have admired. On the surface, of course, this is just a neighborly visit, but every moment of Carling's phony small talk is laced with menace.
A lot can happen in a week. A lot can happen in 48 hours.
Shortly after Carling departs, the group makes their move.
There it is.
But plans like this rarely go off without a hitch. Sure enough, when the group arrives, they find Carling waiting for them.
Good evening, Sturka. You're a long way from home, aren't you?
Man, they can't shake this guy. Carling forces Sturka and Ryden away from the gate and prepares to have them locked up. All seems lost, but quick thinking by Jody enables them to get the jump on Carling. Next, they give a farewell face kick to anyone in their way and make their hasty escape. After the group has safely made their way off planet, Sturka notes it's hard to believe there are people living on the mysterious alien world. And with that, we get the now famous twist: their destination, the third planet from the sun, is Earth.
Behind a tiny ship heading into space is a doomed planet on the verge of suicide. Ahead lies a place called Earth, the third planet from the sun. And for William Sturka and the men and women with him, it's the eve of the beginning in the Twilight Zone.
There we have it, third from the sun. Another classic Twilight Zone that embodies the fears and anxieties of the Cold War era, cleverly couched within a compelling sci-fi story.
Will it be bad?
It'll be a holocaust. It will be hell. It will be the end of everything we know.
This episode is further proof that Richard Matheson and Rod Serling were a dream team when it came to crafting Twilight Zone tales. And I want to give bonus points for great use of the iconic ship from Forbidden Planet. This was the first of many times that we'd see the famous prop ship in the show. And I have no problems with that at all. In this case, what better way to flee a doomed planet than aboard the C-57D? And even more bonus points for the fact that the background noises heard aboard the ship were later reused in Star Trek. Obviously, I'm a fan of this one. On a first viewing, it plays out as a high-anxiety tale that keeps you on the edge of your seat, especially with sleazy Carling lurking in the background.
You're a little nervous, Mrs. Sturka.
Interestingly, Carling is a character who didn't even appear in Matheson's original short story. He was created by Rod Serling. Those of you familiar with the short story will know there was a lot to flesh out for the purposes of television. But Carling's addition to the mix was the best change. I couldn't imagine this story without him. Speaking of which, Andrews had an impressive career. He was a well-known character actor and a familiar face across many TV shows. He was a great fit if you needed an older abrasive type or someone flat-out menacing. Twilight Zone fans will also recognize him from the episode You Drive, And 80s movies fans will likely remember him from 16 Candles and Gremlins, where he played the bank manager, Mr. Corbin.
That's where we're going. To a place called Earth.
Perhaps the most popular aspect of Third from the Sun is the now classic twist ending. As much as I love it, I understand it may be an aspect of the episode that could impede repeat viewings for some. On this point, I will say for me, the performances and cinematography alone still made it worth another watch. And the twist got me wondering about the deeper meanings of the story.
Everyone I've talked to lately, they've been noticing it.
Noticing what, Joe?
That something's wrong.
While the same ending is also present in the short story, Serling's heightened Cold War era paranoia definitely evokes feelings of this being more of a cautionary tale. And it goes without saying, after we know the twist, we can reevaluate the narrative from a whole new perspective. And to me, that's also where this one gains some replay value. In hindsight, it's obvious why the episode is shot in such a unique manner, with unsettling Dutch camera angles and creative visuals, most notably the famous under-the-glass table shot. The director, Richard Albert himself, stated he purposely used wide-angle lenses to keep viewers disoriented. This unique style and tone was meant to clue us in that something wasn't as it seems. But we also understand why the enemy is never specifically identified, and other aspects such as the unusual music choice, the odd car engine sound, the eccentric home decor, particularly that phone. So many of these little things can be written off on a first watch, but when you consider them in their totality, then you see the full picture. This is an alien world that's merely Earth adjacent. Everything here is just weird enough to make us uneasy, but not weird enough to blow the big reveal.
Don't you like your job? Is that the problem?
Job. It's all right.
Lastly, I wanted to circle back to something I noted up front regarding our lead Will Sturka being a character we're meant to root for. Although Sturka is clearly our protagonist, I like that the episode doesn't gloss over the fact that Sturka played a part in helping to create the very weapons which have now doomed this planet. I think it's wise that we don't leave this morally complex issue unaddressed. On the contrary, we get acknowledgement of Will Sturka's struggle. And we see a lot of this reflection via Sturka's lines about his faded youth and his choice to dedicate his life to being a so-called cog in the wheel. Tragically, we know Will played a part in the war machine that's now in its final phase. But it's interesting to see him try to rationalize his part in the oncoming doom.
In one bomb, there are perhaps 1,000 pieces, and every piece requires a team of 50, 60, 70 people. Looking at it like that, I'm not quite as responsible as if I...
The harsh truth is he can't separate his work from who he is. But the other facet of this morally complex scenario is that Will is a father. Regardless of how conflicted he may be, his primary duty is keeping his loved ones safe. And with this being so late in the game, it's no wonder he attempts the risky path he does.
Stars look far away.
I'd like to think that since our lead knows full well the horrors that can result from creating weapons of mass destruction, maybe he'll work toward warning those on Earth of what may result from war. Now, to be clear, that's just my wishful thinking. Both Matheson and Serling likely intended this as more of an out-of-the-frying-pan and into-the-fire ironic twist, because sadly our planet is also prone to self-destruction.
Well, I'll get on home now. I like to take a walk on warm evenings.
All in all, Third from the Sun is another classic Twilight Zone I can easily recommend. And it's one of Rod Serling's more memorable anti-war takes. I'd rate Third from the Sun 5 out of 5 Forbidden Planet escape ships. Now, before I go, I wanted to give a shout out. If you're a Twilight Zone fan, then you have to check out the Key of Imagination channel with the ever-awesome Joe Meyer. On Joe's channel, he's exploring the classic Twilight Zone series in great depth. He's analyzing each episode and finding our moments of awe and much more. So head on over there and show some support for a fellow traveler in the fifth dimension. Alright, that's it for me. Thanks as always for watching, everyone. If you've seen Third from the Sun and have your own thoughts on it, feel free to drop a comment below. Until next time, stay safe, be well, later.